Imagine finding a smartphone in a Roman tomb. You wouldn't believe it. You'd search for an explanation, a forgery, a mistake, anything, because the idea that someone 2,000 years ago possessed technology we consider modern shatters everything we think we know about human progress. That's exactly what happened. Twice. Once in 1901, off a Greek island. Once in 1936 in the desert near Baghdad. Two discoveries. Two artifacts that shouldn't exist. And one question that has haunted us for over a century. What if our ancestors knew things, could build things we never imagined they could? And what if that knowledge wasn't simply forgotten, but deliberately erased? Easter 1900. A sailing ship battles through a Mediterranean storm. On board, Greek sponge divers from the island of Symi. They're returning from the North African coast when the storm seizes them and throws them off course. Captain Dimitrios Kontos seeks shelter in a small cove off the island of Antikythera, a barren rock between Crete and the Peloponnese. The next morning, he sends his best diver down. Elias Stadiatos wears one of those heavy, metal diving suits of the era, copper helmet, lead boots, an air hose connecting him to the ship. He sinks 150 feet. The pressure is immense, and then he sees something that nearly kills him. Human bodies litter the seafloor, naked, scattered, dozens of them. Stadiatos shoots back to the surface in panic. He can barely speak. Only when a second diver goes down does the truth emerge. The bodies aren't corpses, they're statues. Bronze, marble, masterpieces of ancient art, lying on the Mediterranean floor for 2,000 years. The divers have discovered nothing less than one of the most significant shipwrecks in history, a Roman cargo vessel from the 1st century BC loaded with treasures bound for a wealthy buyer in Rome. The Greek government dispatches the navy. For 8 months, divers haul thousands of artifacts to the surface: statues, jewelry, coins, glassware, and one shapeless, corroded lump of bronze, so unremarkable it nearly disappears into storage. May 17, 1902. Archaeologist Valerios Stais walks through the National Museum in Athens. He passes the exhibits, examines the bronze figures, and then stops in front of that lump. Something is wrong with it. He leans closer and sees something that changes his life. A gear, embedded in 2 millennia of corrosion, barely visible, but unmistakably a precisely crafted bronze gear. Stais is an electrician and an archaeologist. He knows gears like this did not exist in ancient Greece. The technology for it, precision metal gears, doesn't appear in the historical record for another 1,500 years. It cannot be. And yet, there it is. The object gets a name: the Antikythera Mechanism. But what it truly is remains a mystery. For decades. Because in the 70 years that follow, almost nothing happens. The technology doesn't exist to peer inside the corroded interior without destroying the artifact. The thing stays an enigma, a bronze lump with gears, argued over at conferences, speculated about in journals. Then, 1971, British physicist Derek de Solla Price, a man who normally writes about the history of science, not archaeology, gains access to the first X-ray images of the mechanism. What he sees refuses to let him go. He recognizes, this is no simple device. This is a complex gear train, a system of at least 30 gears, interlocking like a Swiss watch. The precision is breathtaking. The teeth are uniform, precisely milled, every wheel perfectly matched to the next. Price counts the teeth. Patterns emerge. The numbers remind him of something: astronomical cycles, lunar phases, planetary movements. He publishes his theory in 1974. The Antikythera Mechanism was an astronomical computer, built to predict solar eclipses, calculate the positions of the moon and planets, with an accuracy not achieved again in Europe until the 18th century. The academic world is divided. Many dismiss Price as a romantic reading too much into a few old gears. They're wrong. A team of scientists brings a 12-ton CT scanner to Athens. The machine, normally used to hunt for tumors in human bodies, scans the mechanism layer by layer, millimeter by millimeter. And what the images reveal eclipses everything Price ever imagined. 37 gears, not 30. A differential gear. Technology that wasn't supposed to appear until the 16th century. Inscriptions. Over 2,000 characters, etched into the bronze so small they're invisible to the naked eye. A kind of user manual. An instruction guide engraved in metal, 2,000 years old. The mechanism could predict solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, the positions of the 5 known planets, the Olympic Games, on a 4-year cycle, lunar phases, calendar dates, all with a hand crank, all mechanical, all in bronze. Nothing comparable appears in the archaeological record for over 1,400 years. And then the question that changes everything: who built it? The inscriptions point to Corinth, to colonies of Corinth, to a calendar used in northwestern Greece. The most likely trail leads to one man, Archimedes of Syracuse, the greatest mathematician and engineer of antiquity. Cicero, the Roman statesman, wrote about 100 years after Archimedes' death of 2 bronze devices that Marcellus, the conqueror of Syracuse, took from the city. Devices created by Archimedes that displayed the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. Archimedes died in 212 BC, struck down by a Roman soldier in Syracuse. With him died the knowledge of how to build such machines. Or so we thought. In 2008, excavations at Olympia uncovered another fragment. A gear. Same technology, same precision. The Antikythera Mechanism was no one-off. It was a technology. There were more of them, perhaps dozens, perhaps hundreds. And every single one disappeared. If you find this story fascinating and want more of this knowledge, if you want to understand what our ancestors were truly capable of, then subscribe to Wonderworld Mega now. New documentaries every week, uncovering what lies hidden in the shadows of history. We jump to 1936, the desert outside Baghdad. A German archaeological team is digging at Kujut Rabu, an ancient Parthian settlement. The Parthians, that Persian people who ruled a vast empire between the 2nd century BC and the 3rd century AD, they're known for their heavily armored cavalry, their bitter wars against Rome. They are not known for advanced technology. Wilhelm König, a German archaeologist working for the Iraq Museum in Baghdad, opens an unremarkable wooden crate. Inside, a clay jar about 5.5 inches tall, a copper cylinder, an iron rod, asphalt as sealant. At first glance, nothing special. A storage vessel perhaps, a ritual object. But König is no ordinary archaeologist. Before his career in archaeology, he was an electrical engineer, and what he sees in front of him reminds him of something. A galvanic cell, a battery. The construction is deceptively simple and brilliant. A clay pot as the casing, a copper cylinder fitted and sealed with asphalt. Inside that cylinder, an iron rod, also insulated. Fill the pot with an acidic liquid, vinegar, wine, lemon juice, and an electrochemical reaction occurs. Copper and iron become electrodes. The acid becomes the electrolyte. It produces electricity, not much, about 0.5 volt, maybe 1 volt. But it produces electricity. 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta built the first modern battery in 1800. 2,000 years before Benjamin Franklin flew kites in thunderstorms. 2,000 years before anyone knew the word electricity. 10 more of these jars are found in the region. It's no fluke. It's no coincidence. But for what purpose? That's the question that has split archaeologists, physicists, and engineers for nearly a century. Theory 1. Electroplating. With a simple battery, you can deposit thin layers of gold or silver onto other metals, a process not used industrially until the 19th century. This would explain why some Parthian jewelry displays unusually uniform, wafer-thin gilding. But there are no workshops, no further evidence of industrial use. Theory 2. Religious experience. Imagine you're a Parthian priest in the 2nd century BC. A worshiper touches your statue and feels a tingle, a barely perceptible shock. To them, it's a miracle, a sign from the gods. The battery as divine deception. Theory 3. Medicine. The Greeks knew that electric fish, torpedo rays, could relieve pain. They laid them on inflamed wounds, on aching joints. An electric voltage of 1 volt applied to the skin produces a similar sensation. Perhaps the Baghdad Battery was a medical device, the first TENS unit in history, 2,000 years ahead of its time. Theory 4. And this is the most uncomfortable. We simply don't know. We have the object. We understand how it works, but we don't understand what it means. And that's what's truly unsettling. Because if a civilization knew electricity, and we only stumbled upon it again 2,000 years later, what does that say about our understanding of progress? Want to know whether the ancients really harnessed electricity, and what that means for our picture of history? Keep watching. 2 inventions separated by 2,000 miles and 3 centuries. A mechanical computer in Greece, a battery in modern-day Iraq. At first glance, they have nothing to do with each other. And that's exactly the mistake, because they are 2 sides of the same coin, 2 pieces of evidence for the same uncomfortable truth. The history of human progress is not a straight line. It's not a staircase climbing ever upward. It's a cycle of peaks and collapses. Knowledge emerges, spreads, is used, and vanishes. Overnight. For centuries. Forever. This isn't speculation. This is documented history. The Romans mastered concrete that hardened underwater and lasted 2,000 years, a technology we only rediscovered in the 20th century. The ancient Egyptians performed complex brain surgeries, trepanations where patients demonstrably survived. Damascus steel, legendary for its sharpness and flexibility, forged in Syria between 900 and 1750, still cannot be fully reproduced today. The recipe died with the last smith. Greek fire, the secret weapon of the Byzantine Empire, a liquid that burned on water, gone forever. Its creators took the formula to their graves. The collective knowledge of a civilization is more fragile than we want to believe. Alexandria, the famous library, 500,000 scrolls, the entire knowledge of the ancient world in one place. When it burned, and it burned multiple times across centuries, medical texts, star catalogs, blueprints, maps disappeared. We don't even know exactly what we lost. We only know it's irretrievably gone. And then the question arises, if the Library of Alexandria hadn't burned, if the Romans, the Arabs, the Crusaders had spared it, where would we be today? Would we have experienced the Industrial Revolution 1,000 years earlier? Would electricity be an invention of the 9th century instead of the 19th? Would we already be on Mars? Or, asked differently, what of our knowledge will still exist in 2,000 years? Our entire civilization runs on digital hard drives, on servers, in the cloud. What happens to that knowledge when the power grids fail for a generation? When the server farms stop being cooled? When no one understands the programming languages in which our entire knowledge is encoded? Our brightest minds store everything on silicon chips that degrade within decades without constant energy supply. The greatest libraries in human history, Google, Wikipedia, the Internet Archive, are more ephemeral than the stone tablets of the Sumerians. We laugh at the ancient Egyptians for chiseling their knowledge into crumbling stone. But the hieroglyphs are still legible after 5,000 years. A USB stick is electronic waste after 50. And one more thing, the Antikythera Mechanism and the Baghdad Battery prove something many historians still refuse to accept, that ancient civilizations mastered not just art and philosophy, but technology at a level we consider modern, that there were individual inventors whose genius lay so far ahead of their time that no one understood it, and whose knowledge died with them. Archimedes, the unknown inventor of the Baghdad Battery, and countless others whose names we will never know. It's not civilizations that lose knowledge, it's moments. It's individual people who die, taking with them the one thing they never wrote down, never passed on, because they thought someone would preserve it, because they thought there would be a tomorrow. That's how knowledge disappears, quietly. unspectacularly, forever. And then there's one last, dark truth. Knowledge doesn't vanish only by accident. It vanishes by design, because it's dangerous, because it threatens someone, because it shifts the balance of power. The Antikythera Mechanism, a device that precisely predicted solar eclipses, in a world where eclipses were seen as divine signs, where priests were the only ones who could read the sky, and held enormous power because of it. What happens when suddenly anyone with a hand crank can know when the next wrath of the gods will arrive? When priests are no longer needed as prophets? Power evaporates, and power defends itself. We don't know if the Antikythera Mechanism was deliberately destroyed, whether the ship that carried it didn't sink by accident, whether it went down because someone wanted it to. But we do know the mechanism wasn't the only device of its kind. There were more, and they all vanished. Not a single complete specimen survived. The Baghdad Battery, also not a one-off. 10 specimens, perhaps more, all buried, all forgotten. What if the knowledge of these technologies wasn't simply lost, but eradicated by those who had no interest in the world changing, by priests protecting their interpretive monopoly, by rulers who couldn't tolerate uncontrolled technology in the hands of the people, by systems built on the ignorance of the masses? This isn't conspiracy theory. This is the pattern of history. Galileo Galilei, 1633, forced to recant his discoveries because the church didn't like them. Giordano Bruno, 1600, burned at the stake for claiming the universe was infinite. Ignaz Semmelweis, 1865, committed to an asylum for insisting that doctors should wash their hands before surgery. Knowledge is power, and power has enemies. What does this mean for us? For you, watching this film in the 21st century? It means, don't be too certain. Not too certain that our technology is indestructible. Not too certain that what we know today will still be known in 100 years. Not too certain that humanity always advances, always ascends, always learns. History shows the opposite is the norm. Every generation believes it has reached the summit. Every civilization considers itself the crown of creation, and nearly everyone was blindsided by the next collapse. The Antikythera Mechanism and the Baghdad Battery are more than archaeological curiosities. They are warnings, messages in a bottle from a time that knew what we have forgotten. They whisper to us across 2,000 years, we were smarter than you think, and you are more vulnerable than you believe. What if we are the next civilization whose knowledge vanishes? What if, 2,000 years from now, a diver stumbles upon the ruins of our world and wonders, how could they know so much and lose it all? The answer lies with us, now.